Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley's virtual worship service here on Facebook Live. My name is Reverend Kristen Schmidt, and I'm one of the co-ministers of this congregation. UUCB is a welcoming congregation, and we are always working on how to welcome and care for one another better. Once the shelter-in-place order is lifted and large gatherings are safe to have again, we will return to having in-person worship on our campus in Kensington every Sunday morning at 11. But whether we gather together in person or here online, it's good to be together. At certain times, we will encourage you to participate in this service. So sing along with the songs, type comments into the comment section when we invite you to do so, and please, be sure to join us after the live broadcast for our virtual coffee hour on Zoom. We'll share the link to that at the end of this service. This is a time for all of us to be together, to connect with one another across the physical distances that separate us. Before we really get started, I invite you to take a minute and get ready. Go grab a candle if you have one and a way to light it so that you can light your chalice along with us. Turn off the TV, or do whatever else you need to do to center yourself and prepare for this time together. Finally, if we run into any technical difficulties, please accept our apologies ahead of time. And now, won't you please join me in singing our opening song? The words will appear on the screen.
Free. Now, whether you have your candle ready or you are lighting the inner chalice in your heart, let us light our chalice together. I invite you to share in the comments where you are by writing, "I carry the flame," in whatever town or city you are joining us from. The words for our chalice lighting come to us from the Reverend Gretchen Haley. There is enough space between us to hold all that you are carrying, all that you have been waking, wondering, worrying, or wearing out with confusion or attempts to control, trying to find some sense of normal. All of your irritability, your curiosity, your fragile sobriety, your numb disbelief, your loneliness, your exhaustion, your daily question, allergies or the virus, and your joy. We can hold that too. We can hold all of it here for this time and bless it. Here we will call each other just as we are, beloved. Here in this far apart space that is also close in, so much remains uncertain. The ground is shifting. All we can say for sure is that we are caught in this tangled blessing of life, of grief and gratitude, together, like always, except more. With all the spinning, all the forces of spring and the spinning of the earth, we are turning and becoming and beginning again, offering ourselves like the crocus flower, breaking through with a wild beauty, ready for whatever comes next. Come, let us worship together.
And now please join with me in saying our covenant. Love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Boyle. My pronouns are she, hers, hers, and I am happy to be the acting director of family ministry here at UUCB. I'm happy to come to you today to tell you the story of Passover. And this particular version comes from the PJ Library. So let's begin. The first Passover happened long ago in a faraway country of Egypt. A mean and powerful king called Pharaoh ruled Egypt. Worried that the Jewish people would one day fight against him, Pharaoh decided that these people must become his slaves. And as slaves, the Jewish people worked so hard. Every day, from morning until night, they hammered, they dug, they carried heavy bricks, they built palaces and cities and worked without rest. The Jewish people really hated being slaves. They cried out and asked God for help. And God chose a man named Moses to lead the Jewish people. Moses went to the Pharaoh and said, "God is not happy with the way you are treating the Jewish people. He wants you to let the Jewish people leave Egypt and go into the desert where they will be free." But Pharaoh, he stamped his foot and shouted, "No, I will never let the Jewish people go." Moses warned, "If you do not listen to God, many terrible things called plagues will come to your land." But Pharaoh, he would not listen. And so the plagues arrived. First, the water turned into blood. Next, frogs and later wild animals ran in and out of homes. Hail fell from the sky, and bugs called locusts ate all of the Egyptians' food. And each time a new plague began, Pharaoh would cry out, "Moses, I'll let the Jewish people go. Just stop this horrible plague." Yet no sooner would God take away the plague than Pharaoh would shout, "No, I've changed my mind. The Jews must stay." And so God sent more plagues. Finally, as the 10th plague arrived, the Pharaoh ordered the Jews to leave Egypt. Fearful that the Pharaoh may change his mind yet again, the Jewish people packed up quickly. They had no time to prepare food and no time to allow their dough to rise up into puffy bread. They only had enough time to make this flat cracker-like bread called matzah. They hastily tied the matzah to their backs and ran from their homes. The people had not traveled far before Pharaoh commanded his army to chase after them and bring them back to Egypt. The Jews dashed forward, but stopped when they reached a large sea. The sea was too big to swim across. Frightened that the Pharaoh's men would soon reach them, the people prayed to God, and a miracle occurred. The sea opened up, and 2 walls of water stood in front of them, and a dry, sandy path stretched between the walls. The Jews ran across, and just as they reached the other side, the walls of water fell, and the path disappeared. The sea now separated the Jews from the land of Egypt. They were free. Each year at Passover, we eat special foods and sing songs and tell stories and participate in a Seder, a special meal designed to help us remember this miraculous journey from freedom to slavery.
Breath of life, spirit of love, This morning we give thanks for the old stories, the holidays and the holy days that recount how our ancestors struggled and stumbled along the way, how they survived all kinds of plagues, how hope and love and taking risks carried them through, and how freedom and fairness triumphed all those years ago. This morning we lift up our hearts with all those in our community with joys to share. If you have a joy, an appreciation, a small or great celebration that you would like to share, I invite you to type it into the comments section now. We know that there are those in our community who are sad, who are grieving, who have suffered and are in need. If you have a sorrow or other burden or concern that we can hold with you, I invite you to share it in the comments now. And so, this morning, we pray for everyone, whether bursting with joy or heavy laden with sorrow, aching for company or wishing for some time alone, worried for friends and loved ones sick with the virus, or worried about every sneeze or throat tickle. And today, as Jews around the world prepare to celebrate Passover later this week, we pray for all people in our world who are fettered, who are held down, oppressed, denied their human rights. May all God's children find a welcome at one table or another, drink the wine of deliverance, and eat the bread of freedom. Freedom from bondage and freedom from oppression. Freedom from hunger and freedom from want. Freedom from hatred and freedom from fear. Freedom to think and freedom to speak. Freedom to learn and freedom to love. Freedom to hope and freedom to rejoice soon in our days. Amen.
Our reading comes from The Power of Passover During a Plague by Elena Newhouse. This year, Passover falls at the beginning of April, smack in the middle of what some experts estimate will be the peak of the coronavirus pandemic in America. It's not just the timing of the holiday, built around a retelling of the Jews' exodus from slavery in Egypt, that feels off. It's that every aspect of its story and rituals now seems almost cruelly ironic. The Passover Seder centers on the experience of being thrust out of our homes. But these days, we feel trapped inside of them. The story involves miraculous plagues that saved us. Today, we pray for an end of one. There's the commandment to clean our homes of all non-Passover food, which we just spent innumerable hours and dollars hoarding. Then there's the real heartbreaker. The Seder is when we traditionally gather with friends, family, and even strangers. Let all who are hungry come and eat, we say. These days, many of us can't even be in the same house as our own parents or children. We don't come within 6 feet of strangers. And yet, there will still be Passover. Indeed, I've come to think of Passover as the stem cell of the Jewish people, a reserve of core source material with the proven ability to generate new meanings and solace in circumstances even more extreme than what we are living through now. Recently, some of my colleagues and I set out to create an American Haggadah, one that included the entirety of the traditional text along with elements that speak to the particular history and experience of Jews in this time and place. While putting it together, I was struck by something I hadn't ever fully explored. That of all the things included in the universe of Haggadahs, one thing is conspicuously missing from them all: the story of the Exodus itself. The Haggadah is like the theater sets and costumes and reviews of a play without the actual play. Rabbi Noah Kushner of San Francisco told me recently, about a month before the coronavirus began derailing everyone's Passover plans. All of a sudden, the quixotic meanings of my high school rabbi came back to me. Reading the Exodus is for the already free. Most Jews throughout history have not been free, whether from murderous regimes or famines or pandemics. What we have been is devoted to the idea that we deserve to be. The text of the Haggadah is not a retelling of the liberation story itself, but a record of agreements and disagreements among its interpreters, because it is not the God-driven part of the story that we should be focused on, but the human-driven one. God will come to help when God comes to help. The question is, what do we do between now and then? Last week, a group of major Orthodox rabbis in Israel announced that they would permit people to use Zoom video conferencing for their sedars, a previously unimaginable accommodation to stringent Jewish law. But that's the point. We may be far from loved ones or shut out of communal spaces. We may not be preparing with the same vigor or shopping with the same zeal. but we will do what millions of Jews have done before us: manifest our hope for liberation. That is our obligation and our privilege. All the more so in moments when the taste of freedom from oppression, from want, from disease is not yet ours.
When I think back over the course of my life, I'm not sure I can think of any other disruptive event that so many people around the world have experienced at the same time. Whether in Dublin or Delhi or here in downtown San Francisco, people everywhere are being impacted by the coronavirus. Many people around the world continue to go to work, stocking shelves, cleaning stores and offices and hospitals, nursing patients, performing surgery. Others have been displaced and are heading home to the countryside from the cities where they used to work as day laborers. Still others are confined largely to their homes, their hospital beds, or their prison cells. And all of us wait for the end to come, for the threat to subside, for these hard days to end. I've heard lots of people say they want things to return back to normal, back to the way they were. But as climate activist Greta Thunberg said the other day, normal was a crisis. There were people whose lives were very difficult before this virus began to spread, and whose suffering will not come to an end even when this pandemic does. And that's because the normal to which we've become accustomed really should be considered anything but normal. This week, I saw a tweet go viral that read, "This pandemic has revealed just how essential so many workers really are." And yes, if their work is essential to our society, then it ought to be compensated as such. This pandemic has revealed all sorts of other things. The air, for example, in Los Angeles is so much cleaner right now than it's been in living memory because people are not clogging the highways. In this way, the damage that our normal is doing to this planet is being revealed in real time. We wait with a mixture of worry and fear and hope for this pandemic to end. In some ways, I imagine like the Hebrews waited for their enslavement to end. Jews the world over will celebrate Passover this week as a way to remember their people's obligation to help free others, for once they were slaves in Egypt. So, my friends, may our shared experience in these days of fear and burden, restricted movement and isolation soften our hearts for those whom our world takes advantage of in order to make normal possible. May we find hope in the dedication of everyone who shows up day in and day out to keep our food stocked and our prescriptions filled, our hospitals clean and our ventilators functioning, our electricity on and our trash collected. And when the day of deliverance finally comes, when the people of earth are finally let go from the clutches of this virus, when we are freed from our homes and our particular struggles and sufferings, may our elation and our gratitude be transformed into commitment. Commitment to help free others from the fetters of a society that has worshipped at the altar of the false gods of profit and productivity for far too long. commitment to living into a truly free society where all labor is valued, where all bodies are cared for, where all cultures and identities are celebrated, and where glory and honor are given to love and goodness, abundance and mercy, soon in our days. Amen.
When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus spoke the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell Pharaoh to let my people go. Let my people go.
Unfortunately, social distancing means that many among us have lost our sources of income. But whether we're in a position to make a financial offering, each and every one of us has something precious to share. It could be sharing poetry, drawings, picking up the phone, or sending an email to check in on another person. Maybe you enjoy being a pen pal and could write letters to the kids in the congregation or in your family during these days when they are largely stuck at home. For those of us who still can financially, we hope you will give generously to UUCB each week, even when we can't gather in person. We're honoring our commitment to our good neighbor organizations who need our support now more than ever. This month, we're sharing half of our offerings with the Women's Cancer Resource Center so that we can support the difference they are making in our wider communities. The Women's Cancer Resource Center helps women with cancer improve quality of life through education, supportive services, and practical assistance. They serve people with any form of cancer from all backgrounds, economic levels, and ethnicities. Clients include people with new diagnoses, people in remission, those living with metastatic disease, and those receiving end-of-life care. Our offerings, however large or small, are given and received with gratitude. If you wish to make an offering this week, or if you wish to send a donation to the minister's discretionary fund to help UUCB members who need financial support during this crisis, or pay your pledge, you can always send cash or a check. We do have staff coming in to receive mail and process basic finances even while we shelter in place. More details on how to give electronically will appear on your screen as our offertory begins. Thank you. Now, please join me in dedicating our offering with the words printed on your screen. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service.
As we shelter in place and go out only as needed, some of the less vulnerable among us are stepping forward to run necessary errands for those who can't or shouldn't go out. This is so generous because, in fact, no one is immune to serious illness from this virus. We thank these volunteers for their loving assistance. So if you are older or for any other reason are higher risk, please contact us rather than go out yourself and risk infection. We may be able to help you connect with available delivery services, or we will shop and deliver to you in person if that is the best solution. There should be directions now on your screen for how to contact Susan Langford, who is coordinating UUCB's effort to deliver groceries to those in our congregation who need it. We want to be sure everyone has the essentials to weather this difficult time. And also, the next time you see her on Zoom or talk to her on the phone, please thank Susan for volunteering to help our community in a special way. Thank you, Susan. A reminder that our stewardship campaign has been put on pause during this unprecedented time, but that if you are able, you can still fill out a pledge card, either one we sent home with you weeks ago or through our online form. You can still give, too, during this time as part of our offering, or to fulfill a pledge, or to support our ministerial discretionary fund, which is helping support people in need, including those within our own congregation. If you're getting a stimulus check in the next few weeks and you don't need it right now, consider donating it to our ministerial discretionary fund, please. If you have lost your income due to the pandemic, please contact one of the ministers. Reverend Kristen and I will be happy to provide you with financial aid from the minister's discretionary fund. We are already receiving generous gifts from many in the congregation specifically for this purpose. We're working to provide these payments electronically to people in need so that they're both faster and involve no risk of passing infection. A final note. Zoom, the service we've been using to run many of our online gatherings, has increased its security protocols in recent days to prevent what's become known as Zoom bombing, in which people with malicious intent come into meetings to cause trouble. This means while we adjust to this new reality, you may have an occasional issue connecting with our meetings, particularly those meetings that were already set up before these new protocols, which may now have passwords that was started after the initial invitations were sent out. Please be patient as we adjust to this. We're working to do our best to make sure that everyone can access our offerings, and anticipate that in the next few days we'll have figured this all out. Thank you.
Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. 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 Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. 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 Oh, yes, I know.
Friends, we extinguish our chalice today with thoughts of all those around the world suffering, all of those with sickness and injury, all who have lost jobs, all those who are working so hard to care for those among us most in need. May the light each of us carry inside provide insight, warmth, and vision. Our benediction today is this. In this time when our movement is restricted, it has become clear how much we value our freedom. May each of us and all of us treasure our freedoms and love and support one another in this time. Our worship has ended and our service begins.